G'day guys, welcome back to another tipping video on the channel, and today I'll be going through my gather round predictions. So yeah, let's jump straight into it. So yeah, I've obviously already gone through what occurred in round 3. If you haven't seen my previous video, it came out earlier today and went through round 3, and yeah, go check that video out if you haven't. But yeah, gather round, exciting times. Obviously, just the second time now that Gather Round has, popped up in the AFL, and yeah, it seems like quite a while ago now, actually, that the first Gather Round occurred. But then again, it sort of doesn't. So, yeah, but yeah, exciting times. Look, last year's Gather Round was a huge success, and hopefully this year's will be just as good. First game on the Thursday night, exciting one. Big game as well, Adelaide versus Melbourne. Now, obviously, this game was always going to be big because, it's Adelaide again. They play first again on Gather Round. They played on the Thursday night last year as well against Carlton. And they got the job done that night by about 60 points. And I don't think that's going to happen this time round because, the Crows have been struggling. They're out of form severely. They've been slammed. And pressured hard in the critics. The critics have, absolutely battered them with, strictness, I guess. And yeah, they certainly didn't deliver again away at home against Fremantle. They just cannot win away from home, Adelaide. But this one obviously is at their home ground. So you have to give them a really good chance, even though they've got injuries. Wayne Miller is out for the rest of the season, which is a bit of a blow to their defence from last game. And they also have Lockie Murphy out for this game as well, and I believe he's out for a month or so now as well. So, injuries are starting to occur in the AFL now, and Adelaide certainly have a few of them. And Melbourne, look, they were really impressive against Port Adelaide. Credit to them. They've been in really good form. Their forward line's been absolutely fantastic at recent times. And they'd be hoping that would continue. And Stephen May possibly returning as well for this game is all but going to probably confirm or help their chances of winning this game. And yeah, their midfield has been absolutely fantastic. Clary Oliver, Petrarca, Viney. But that's as you'd expect. Max Gorn was ridiculously good again on the weekend. So, yeah, look, hard to go past Melbourne here. Even though I do see Adelaide, playing well because they've got absolutely everything on the line. They simply have to win. Plus, it is Gather Round. I feel like Adelaide, they almost have to win this game. But in a way, I'm sort of going with an upset that isn't an upset because I personally think Adelaide will win this game. But at the same time, I want to tip an upset, but it's not really an upset at the same time. It's weird. But anyway, I'll stop yapping. Melbourne by 14 points. For mine and my big call, Melbourne kicked 10 more goals than behinds. They did it last week, I believe, so why don't they do it again? They've been very accurate in recent times. Now, moving on to the next game is Brisbane versus North. Now, I will not be watching this, and I doubt most people would be, unless, you're obviously attending Gather Round. And, even though it is a Gather Round game, still won't be watching it. Brisbane, now that they've lost another game, they're 0-3, they've already had their bye. There's a lot of pressure on them all of a sudden. And, they didn't have that much pressure. But all of a sudden, now that Collingwood's got to win, bang, all the focus and the attention now moves on to Brisbane and also Adelaide, but mainly Brisbane, as they are 0-3 and are in desperate need of a win. Now, they should respond here. There's been talks about Eric Hipwood. Does he get dropped? He has to, really. He's just never been the same player ever since that ACL in 2021. But yeah, look, Brisbane, they have to win. Their forward line is just so good on paper still. You got to be ridiculously brave to tip North here, even with Brisbane out of form. Now, look, North, I did watch their performance against Carlton, Good Friday, the annual Good Friday game. They started well. Their pressure was up and then it just dropped off. Though their young kids were impressive in this game, credit to them. Yeah, look, I'm not going to tip North here. I don't think anyone would. I'm going to back in Brisbane by 29 points, so pretty comfortably. Yeah, my big call, Oscar McInerney and Tristan Cherry combined for 80 plus hitouts. Bit of a weird big call that, but I'm a big fan of the player big calls this year, I've noticed, or at least in recent times, so might as well jump on board with them, you know. And then moving on to the next game, on the same day, Friday night, Port Adelaide versus Essendon at the Adelaide Oval, obviously, because it's gather round. I don't really know why I'm saying that. I guess the last game, North Melbourne versus Brisbane, that's at Norwood, I believe. So, yeah, that's going to make it a little bit more interesting for Brisbane. Yeah, anyways, back onto the topic of Port versus Essendon. This game has potential to be a really, really good game, and an underrated game. Port Adelaide, as you can see there with the odds, they are well and truly favourites to win this game. But not in my eyes. Like, Essendon have been really, really impressive this season so far. Jakey Stringer has been absolutely fantastic, leading the way for their forward line. Nick Martin was ridiculously good last week. Their defence had a pretty good game, despite, inaccuracy from St Kilda and all that. They were still probably the better side in the end, thanks to that fourth quarter. Obviously, Durham injured and perhaps Dersma as well, isn't great for them, but nevertheless, I still see Essendon challenging them, Port, with their current form. And, Peter Wright's absence all of a sudden doesn't look as big, with Harrison Jones and Langford performing along with Stringer. Now, Port Adelaide, they were disappointing last week, and I'm expecting a response from them. Horne-Francis, I believe, is all but confirmed to return for this game, and obviously it is gather round, so, there's a little bit more on the line for Port Adelaide. Losing to a team like Essendon would just make the critics, you would think, come at them. But I don't think they're that bad of a side, Port Adelaide, to lose to Essendon at home. So I'm going to back in Port Adelaide. But look, I reckon it'll be close. So I'm going to back them in by 5 points. Maybe we see a Dan Houston 2.0. Sorry, Bomber fans, for mentioning that. But, my big call for this one will be Jakey Stringer to kick 4 or more goals. Now, I absolutely hate him. Hate his guts, Stringer. I hate this big call, but it'd be a win-win, I guess. A bittersweet big call to get. Moving on to the next game. Definitely will not be watching this game. West Coast versus Sydney. This one at the Adelaide Hills in Mount Barker. West Coast have been in absolutely disgraceful form at the moment. And, they've had a horrible start to the season. Harley Reid was disappointing as well last week, so there were no real positives out of their game against Western Bulldogs. They only scored 3 goals, 10 behinds. They were inaccurate as hell. Jamie Cripps was so inaccurate, and without Oscar Allen, that forward line, it's just struggling, isn't it? Their defence, though, like McGovern, those type of players, they've won a heap of the ball to start the season. Like Jeremy McGovern's start to the season has to be said, it's severely underrated. He's got like over 20 touches in all 3 of his games he's played. Elliot Yeo as well. I mean, I haven't actually watched a West Coast game, but I'm just saying that, those two have been absolutely fantastic from what I've been told. And Sydney, look, they'll be looking for a response as well, to bounce back after a poor performance the other day at the MCG on the weekend. Yeah, they just look like the second best side, really, all game. Their midfield didn't quite, do as much damage as in the first 3 games that they played, and perhaps maybe now the run of games might be getting to them. Maybe they might need a bye. But going into this game, they are severe, overwhelming favourites in this game. If West Coast win this, it would have to be the biggest upset of all time, because we all know what happened last year. Sydney scored 200 points on them, and I wouldn't be surprised if they do it again. It is a smaller ground as well, so expect more goals. But it's not that small of a ground. Like, I'm pretty sure it's bigger than Norwood. So, I do see it being a little bit closer than what people might think. Then again, I've still gone with an absolute Sydney smashing. Their defence hasn't been great recently as well, Sydney. Their last two games, their defence, Dane Rampy, hamstring as well for 4 months. He'll be out for. So, yeah, that's a bit concerning. But their forward line is just way too good. So, I'll stop yapping now. I've yapped enough about this game. Sydney by 60 points. And my big calls, Sydney kicked 10 goals in a row in this one. Now, next game is probably going to be game of the round, in my opinion. Fremantle versus Carlton. It's just safe to say that this one's probably going to be game of the round in terms of, both teams are in great form, expect it to be close, high stakes, perhaps low scoring with both teams' defences in pretty good form. Fremantle, their defence has been fantastic. Cox and Pearce, wow, did they play amazing games last week against the Crows. They only conceded 4 goals, that defence. And this is a defence that's been hammered by injuries. Brennan Cox, Oscar McDonald. I'm sure I'm forgetting a few as well. And Jordan Clark as well back there. His start to the season has been severely underrated as well. They're playing some really good football at the moment, Freo, all across the board. Perhaps in inaccuracy against Adelaide, but then again, inaccuracy, sometimes it's just a bad day in terms of them kicking goals. They'll be looking to bounce back in terms of their accuracy in this game against Carlton. And, they're in great form, Freo. So it's hard to go past them in this one, especially when Carlton have never won at the Adelaide Oval, which makes this game even bigger for them. They'd be desperately wanting to win, even though they are 3-0. They're flying. They've just had a bye. They're coming off scoring 137 points against North Melbourne. Why not chuck in an upset? Because Carlton have never won at the Adelaide Oval. I'm going to go Fremantle by 11 points. And my big call, now this is... And if this happens, this would be crazy. They can't do it back-to-back weeks, I know. But Pearce and Ryan, they were fantastic last week. Why not chuck in a crazy big call for them to both combine for 15 or more intercept marks? That would be absolutely crazy. It's my big call. It's a bit of a weird one. But yeah, anyways, moving on to the Western Bulldogs versus Geelong. Another 50-50 one to tip. Frustrating having a few 50-50 ones already in the round. Especially of gather round, though, it does make it a little bit more exciting. Geelong have had a fantastic start to the season, 3-0. They've been phenomenal. Their midfield, even without Dangerfield, was absolutely fantastic against Hawthorn. They were definitely the better side for longer. Their forward line was fantastic in terms of kicking goals. Ollie Henry, Hawkins, Cameron, the usuals really for Geelong. Their first quarter was fantastic. And, they'll be looking to, do it again. Tom Stewart, he's had a fantastic start to the season, as you'd expect from the legend. And the Bulldogs, didn't watch their game against West Coast, but, yeah, they played well, 76-point winners. Liberatore, I believe, got injured in the game. Now, I haven't heard anything about it. So that's a bit weird. Apparently he got injured. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Their forward line is doing a lot better than what I thought it'd be. Have I underestimated the Bulldogs? Maybe. I had them a bottom 6 side in my, my season predictions, and I still don't rate them. But yeah, big game, real test for them to see where they're at, especially defensively. But yeah, got to back in the Cats. It is a bit of a 50-50 game, but I think Geelong will win. I actually go then to win it quite comfortably by 19 points, and my big call, Geelong come from behind at 3/4 time. So yeah, that makes it a bit of an interesting big call again. Going with some bold ones this round. Now moving on to the Sunday, fly through these. Gold Coast versus GWS, 50-50 game actually, sort of to tip. Just because of the venue, really. Up at Adelaide Hills, Mount Barker, they get 2 games this time round. Mount Barker, they only got the 1 last year in North Melbourne versus Brisbane. But yeah, GWS, look, they're coming off a bye, just like Gold Coast, so I can't really speak about Them, can they? Giants have been fantastic to start their season, though, and Gold Coast, they're coming off a disappointing loss against the Bulldogs. They'll be looking to respond here. But yeah, as I said, fly through this one. My tip is the Giants play it safe for mine by 20 points. But my big call, 15 or more goals, is scored in the first half. So yeah, exciting game this one should be, hopefully. And then moving on to the final two games of the round. And now I'm going to quickly fly through both of these. They're going to be close games, I feel. Richmond and St Kilda, they both have injuries. Richmond are going to challenge Liam Baker's suspension at the tribunal. They've had injuries, Tom Lynch, Bolter, and the injury list is building. But yeah, they were fantastic against Sydney. Deserved the win as well. They were quite inaccurate though, but oh well, at least they got the win. A win's a win, and Adam Muse would be feeling pretty happy at the moment, especially about his pickup of Lafau. He looks absolutely fantastic, that kid. Nick Vlaston, single-handedly, in my opinion, won them that game in that last quarter. Absolutely fantastic. And St Kilda, they've had their injury concerns. And again, inaccuracy probably cost them against Essendon on Easter Saturday. Max King's suspension doesn't help, does it? But he'll be returning for this game, which is always a boost for them. Mason Wood and Henry still out though. Windhager suspended. It makes it a 50-50 game, isn't it? Now, I have been contemplating who to tip here all day long, but I'm probably going to go with the Saints. Play it safe by 6 points. It'll be a close game in my opinion. A low-scoring close game, though, which isn't great. You don't normally like to see low-scoring close games, but sometimes they can be good, sometimes not. But my big call, both teams score under 70 points. Now, that might be difficult to do, seeing Richmond have scored quite heavily in recent weeks. Now, moving on to the final game, Collingwood versus Hawthorn. Yeah, look, Hawthorn, they were disappointing against Geelong, but, they showed signs. Yes, it is another loss, but they had some moments. Mabior Chol was fantastic. James Warple probably had his best game of his career. They made some silly mistakes defensively, and they missed out on some chances in the forward line as well. Again, inaccuracy for Hawthorn. They'll be looking for a response. They're in desperate need of a win. Mitch Lewis has been ruled out for this game with a minor hamstring issue. And also Nick Watson's been ruled out for the next month as well, which is a bit of a blow as well. Collingwood, look, they got the win against Brisbane. That's all you can ask for. 20-point win. It was a good win. Comfortable win over Brisbane as well, up at the Gabba. So confidence hopefully returning. 10-day break as well, which is always good. Hopefully the defence can continue to hold up, because that's really where the issues have been for Collingwood this season. I was absolutely thrilled that we got Noble back in, because he was absolutely ridiculously good. He's staying in the side. I don't think he'll get dropped again. Like, you just can't drop a player that comes in and does that. He was fantastic in the VFL as well. So when he played in there, you just simply have to keep him in there. We had Joe Richards, who kicked 6 goals in the VFL. So do we play him? Who knows? Do we rest a few? Does Pendlebury get managed? Does Sidebottom come back in, or do we manage him for 2 weeks in a row? Is the big question. Do we get Chris back in, or McRae back as sub? Questions to be asked for in this game. But look, let's just go out and get the win. I think we will. We've got a great record against. Hawthorn are our bogey team, is what I was trying to say. But also, we've got a great record at the Adelaide Oval in recent times. And I think if we win this game against Hawthorn, we'll break some sort of record about how many games won in a row at the Adelaide Oval or something. I don't know. Anyway, it'd be fantastic if we do it. So, I'm going to go us to win it comfortably by 26 points. I'm just hoping that Finn McGuinness doesn't play, because he didn't play last week. If he plays, then my big call will be in jeopardy. I'm going with Nick Dacos to get 35 or more disposals, which is a huge big call, seeming what happened to him last year in this corresponding game at the G against the Hawks. So, yeah, hopefully, fingers crossed, all goes to plan for Nick and the Pies, and hopefully we can beat the Hawks, and hopefully Gather Round is a huge success again. Guys enjoyed my predictions, and yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one.